Hi everyone, and welcome to a special edition of VBJ Lockdown Lowdown. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Alan and Vicky Robinson from Vet Dynamics. Hi guys.
Hi James.
And also Jeff Lerma, who is a tax accountant with many years experience in the veterinary sector. How's it going, Jeff?
It's going really well, James. Really
fantastic. Good. Well, thanks ever so much for you guys joining me today. The reason we decided we were going to do this is because there's a lot of things going on out in the world of the veterinary sector at the moment. Some of them are pretty big deal. The first one we want to talk about is this buying bubble that we're seeing going up again. My question to you, Vicky, really would be, is this the same bubble that just went into a state of stasis 12 months ago, or is it a new one? Is it being prompted by new forces and dynamics?
I think it's a new one. Last summer, after we came out of lockdown, it seemed to just start to grow, and now I think it's blown out of the water. What we saw in sort of 2016 to 2018, the offers that are coming in are absolutely crazy at the moment. We keep expecting it to stop, and it hasn't just yet. It's still going.
Why do you think that is? What's driving it? What is there going on at the moment that's prompting this?
Well, some of the corporates have been approaching or are approaching various financial events. So they like to sort of stuff their pipeline with lots of practices. It's just continuing to be crazy at this point in time. I guess investors are looking at the veterinary profession very favourably. It's proved to be COVID resistant. Our clients definitely, our Vet Dynamics independent clients definitely had some of their best years ever last year, even with the lockdown periods taken out of them. So I suppose it's a good place to put your money.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been the adage that it's been recession proof. I mean, it's looking like we might be fairly pandemic proof. I mean, would you agree with that, Alan and Jeff?
From my perspective, our coach has been busy right throughout the whole pandemic, offered a lot of support, was the key thing, most practices, but that wasn't financial. The financials looked after themselves. Biggest challenge was just the wear and tear on the teams as such. But I think we've learned a huge number of lessons around community, working together, looking after teams, compassion fatigue, because that's always been a background noise, but now it's front and center. Shifted the whole focus of how veterinary practice works. So it's been, in a weird way, I think a good thing over in the long term. The long-term consequences of this are going to be great, well, for us, particularly for independent practices. And of course, back to Vicky's point, I think the corporate buyers are seeing that strength in the veterinary market and taking advantage of it.
I guess it's a little bit whenever there's a war on, people buy gold. Whenever, this is our war and people are putting their money into the veterinary sector because they consider it to be such a safe bet. Jeff, what are some of the things that, from a financial accountant point of view, that may be prompting some of this acquisitive behaviour or renewed acquisitive behaviour, should I say?
I think it's just reflecting of what great businesses the veterinary practices are. They're a well-run veterinary practice. The big differentiation between a veterinary practice and maybe another professional practice is obviously the insurance element of the work. So from an acquirer's point of view, if someone in general public needs to spend, I don't know, £12,000 on operation, the truth chances they probably wouldn't be able to afford it. The fact they've got insurance means they can, which actually creates a very strong income source that is beyond their clients. So I think probably insurance has helped, and also very much with especially the corporates, because they have so many aspects in that business that it's just the more that they can sort of put into one bit of it, everything else just grows from it. So I think those two things have made a big difference.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, Alan, you obviously touched on some of the benefits that can come from this pandemic. We'll talk about those a little bit later. But back to you, Vicky. Is this a good time to sell my veterinary practice? If I were lucky to have one and I was looking to sell it, would this be a good time? What advice would you have?
I think if you were thinking of selling or exiting your business in the next 2, maybe 3 years, now has to be the best time to at least test the water, because the offers that are coming in are just too good to say no to in most cases. And then, and obviously Jeff will tell you more about this. This looks like we've just had a little frenzy, and you'll notice lots of completions before the budget. But that's the next thing, is when will we lose entrepreneurs relief, which could make a massive difference.
Yeah, we've got two aspects of state. We've got great multiples of profits being offered, which is fantastic, but we've also got a more generous and a capital gains tax regime that is actually moderately generous in the first £1 million at 10%, the second anything above that at 20%, and there is a lot of pressure on the government to actually say, if you've made a gain, if you make a gain personally, you're going to pay tax of 45%. You make a gain somewhere else, you're going to pay tax at 10% or 20%. There's a lot of pressure to equalise those numbers. So, say now is the time. We've got high ratios and low tax. You can get your practice. You can make it in the next 2 years. You might be able to make it fantastic. But if all that happens is the tax becomes worse and the multiples goes down, you're selling a much better business, but great, the proceeds, what you're going to walk away with will be significantly less. And it's certainly worth exploring the valuation for business today, saying is it worth it? Because once you've got that number, once you know what the practice is worth, you can make an informed decision. It might say, yeah, that suits me, that doesn't suit me, but you're making a decision based on facts rather than, well, I think it's all right. It might be. Make a decision based on fact. Get it properly valued so you know what you can get, and then you say, fine, if it goes, this is what I get away with, and this is what I walk away with, and you'll understand that. So I think it's a perfect time for at least getting some information about it's the right time, so it's not. But base it on fact. Don't base it on hearsay and my friend down the pub did this, whatever. That's when we used to go to pubs. That's not a good way of making a really important decision. This is a life-changing decision. Setting up this practice, I imagine vets have put everything into this. I know when I set up my county practice, you put everything into it. Family commitment, every piggy bank got emptied. It's not just, it's a real, and the right time to exit, there is a right time, and now is feeling it's the right time. Obviously, who knows, in 3 years' time, multiples will be even more, but I would be surprised because they're pretty good at the moment.
So we think these offers are topping out right now, and I guess there's no way of predicting how long this period of acquisition will last.
I don't think anyone can really guess that, can they? It's still going on at the moment, but when will there be an end point? I don't know. We didn't know before. We just kept saying the bubble's got to burst, and this one will have to. We just don't know when. But like Jeff was just saying, having some facts is really helpful. And I'm having this conversation a lot with people that can't quite decide, is now the right time? Should I hang on a few more years? And the answer is, well, just find out what you're saying no to. You can get offers, you can walk away, nobody's going to mind, but get some facts, know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I mean, that plays into what you've always said, Alan, haven't you? You have the facts, you get all the data, and then you can make proper decisions based on those facts and data.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword, of course, and it's not all about the money for a lot of practices. It's around, the age of the vets involved, so succession planning, their contribution to the profession, their own lifestyle, etc. So, there's stonkingly good offers, and that turns your head in some ways. But, the other thing to think about is, as Vicky said, if I'm going to say no, at least know what you're saying no to, and then have a really good plan for taking it forward and building your legacy in a different way. So, like I said, from Vet Dynamics' point of view, we want people to stay independent, but we also need to serve our clients' needs, and if they want to retire and fill their pension pots, here's a perfect opportunity to do so.
What would be some of the positives of that sort of money coming in? I'm thinking at some point people will be able to reinvest that, and they'll maybe want to reinvest it in the sector. They might want to set up another practice at some point, bearing in mind, I know there are usually covenants attached to these deals, but we've seen some of those independents who sold out now coming back in to the onto the playing field, and that's quite interesting.
I think what we'll see, well, two parts to the money coming in. Obviously, there's lots of money coming into the corporate world to spend in the veterinary world. Where does that money go? Does it just disappear back into the pockets of private equity? Maybe so. But I think what we're seeing now, there's been a long stage of acquisition, which is buy, resell, buy, resell. I'm not sure that's been great for the profession. But we are now seeing a lot of the corporates having to move into this stabilization or I can't even say the word. So they have to run veterinary practices, which means they've got to now be buying CT scanners. They're buying new equipment. They're re-equipping it and building up. So I think that's a good thing that the corporates are now spending back into the profession and building up, and providing income for our suppliers and the people who provide that. Plus, drug companies are doing very well from growing practices, economies of scale. So that's one side of it. The other side is the people are walking away. I think people have had a windfall of wealth that they probably didn't imagine when they first entered the profession. But a lot of them are sitting with this money in the bank saying, what do I do? Being veterinary surgeons and vets at heart, a lot of them aren't falling far from the tree. They're stepping back, and now we're getting lots of inquiries around startups for the younger vets, because don't forget that opportunity to buy into an ongoing practice as a partner succession is gone. That is just virtually gone. So what do? Startups. And the other one is start agains. So a lot of these vets are saying, okay, I've done it once, I've learned a lot, I did it pretty well, but I think I can do it better this time around. And if you've got 10, 15, 20 years still in you of veterinary contribution, perfect opportunity. Difficulty is, can I find a property? Can I get planning? Finance isn't a problem for those. And then, have I got the support to do it again?
Okay. Well, I actually think that that's a great place to leave this first episode, because we're going to speak about starting your own thing up in our next installment. So Alan, Jeff, Vicky, thanks ever so much for joining me, and I'll see you soon.